Good afternoon on what is a bright, sunny and warm afternoon. It is Tuesday, September the 21st, back in the Read Nook with a nice hot cup of tea and some parcels to unbox. But first, I'm going to unbox something a bit different, which is this. Stormbringer, fantasy role-playing in the world of Elric, created by Michael Moorcock and his novels. And it's designed by Ken St. Andre and the late Steve Perrin. Published by Chaosium Inc. This would have come in published in 1981, so it is 40 years old. Essentially, Stormbringer is an easy-to-play game of fantasy role-playing. Participants create imaginary characters to go adventuring through a world of fantasy where magic is real, heroes exist, and there are many places for adventure. Stormbringer is set in the world of the Young Kingdoms, Michael Moorcock's fantasy world for the Elric stories. Visit Imeria, the capital of Melnibone, or home of Elric. Visit the island of Pantang, where many sorcerers live. Explore exciting Tarkash, the home of the greatest sailors of the Young Kingdoms. Meet Moonglum, Eric's sidekick and rogue from Eastern Elware. Meet Rakir, the Red Archer, a warrior priest of Chaos, who was the greatest champion of Taenorn. Meet Michella, the sleeping sorceress and mistress of Cainloon, who commands powers that can create worlds. Try not to meet Stormbringer, the powerful ring sword holding the key to the fate of the Young Kingdoms. Characters begin play as warriors, priests, nobles, hunters, sailors, merchants, or even beggars, working and fighting their way through the adversity to reach greatness, wealth, magic, and fame. In this game, game masters are responsible for running scenarios, although players can go on solo adventures as well. A scenario is a single adventure, which might be a raid against monsters, a quest for a magical item, guarding a caravan, or ambushing a dragon. This box contains everything you need to set up such adventures. So what you've got in here, this game is compatible with RuneQuest and basic role-playing. You've got the Stormbringer rules book, map to the Young Kingdoms, character sheet, 6 polyhedral dice. Okay, so there's the back of the box. Now this would actually go through various iterations, and so a number of different redesigns. So at one point it would actually become Elric, and then there is Dragon Lords of Melnibone, which is essentially the D20 version. Now this version I got off eBay, and essentially when I opened up, this is what I saw. So there's no dice. And there is a chip that I've just dropped on the floor, of course, because that's traditional whenever I open up a box. So let me just reach down and grab that. And there we go. That's what I've dropped. So I'm going to put that back in the box. So this is this is the nice little note I got in there. Okay. Thanks for buying this game. It belonged to my late father. I hope you get as much enjoyment as he and his gaming friends did. Best wishes and stay safe. That's a nice. I really like that. That's a nice message, and I've kept that in there with it. So this is a map of the Young Kingdoms, and this map again appears again and again in the different iterations of the role-playing game. So there's been versions by Mongoose Publishing as well. I could just basically just show you that. You really can't see because it's quite a large map. And again, there's no version currently. It would be nice if there was. I think it'd be fantastic for authors to come in, basically, not necessarily redesign it, because in some ways, certainly the first edition is kind of in need of a redesign. Primarily for balance, because one of the problems is that you create a character in it, and you can end up playing a beggar or a hunter or a merchant, and then you look to your left and your mate is essentially playing a noble priest of Pantang who's also a sorcerer, and just essentially he's got so many more skills than your character has. Anyway, so this is the rulebook. It really runs to just 144 pages. The interesting thing is that I'm just going to show you the index. So there's no page numbers. It's all sections a la a set of wargaming rules, which would have been pretty much standard practice back in 1980-81 when this was published. So this is the core rulebook. This is a second printing because of the reddish cover. And it's artwork by Frank Brunner, which is fantastic, and you open it up and you delve into it, and there's a more accessible map of the Young Kingdoms, basically, rather than the large map. The large map's nice, that's just a bit easier to use, and it really doesn't show any much more detail. And you go, okay, work for the Young Kingdoms. You've got a complete introduction to role playing, the setting, cover everything from social structure, technological level, the different nations such as Marleybone and Pantang, Jakor, the Weeping Wastes, and so on. And then character creation. There we go. I'm just going to show you. Really show you what an actual. Here's the table you're rolling for nationalities, because that's random as well. And then you basically, if you create a beggar, you could roll on the afflictions table. There we go. So lots of role playing opportunities there. And then we've got a fully worked example there, and they're really helpful. One of the things I found, because I opened this, I did a review of it recently, basically this last weekend, because of its 40th anniversary, and that's what a warrior assassin looks like from Argamilla. So yeah, that's the basic Kent and Andre's character, and that's a complete character sheet. So it's really kind of relatively simple iteration of basic roleplay. If you've only played any basic roleplay system, you'll grasp this easily. And what's interesting about this, in one way, is that I think one of the major differences essentially is that, okay, it sticks to hit points rather than hit locations, and armor is rolled for. So instead of your chainmail blocking 4 points of damage every time, that will be rolled like a d8 -1. So it's random. So it does make the game a bit more, basically a bit more dangerous. And then we get on to full explanation of the rules, and the rules are really quite simple, straightforward. Roll percentile dice, get under, that's it. If you roll 1/10 of your skill, critical, brilliant, move on, that's it. It's really nice. You've got a whole section of sorcery and a discussion of magic, and so we've got a couple of tables here. So here's an explanation of all the sorcerer's levels. So you need a combination of like really high power and really high intelligence. Combine that, and if it's a minimum of 32 or more, you start getting sorcery skills, and you can summon elementals, and then demons, and then bind them. So if there's an example in here where a character summons a salamander elemental and binds it into a short sword, so that whenever he wants, he can have a flaming short sword. And so this table gives you, here's the list of all the starting sorcerer skills. So, all depending upon the rank and your character's beginning power and intelligence combined. And that's high enough, and it's possible to start play with, a character with an intelligence of 24 and a power of 22. And that puts that character on the 4th rank, straight off. And gets a whole lot of bonus skills. So that's where the problem, essentially, where it's a little bit unbalanced. So what else have we got in here? So we have cults. Cults are important because essentially it gives you like an NPC and organisations essentially for the GM to essentially push and prod the players to go around, and objectives for the players to achieve, and grow and get recognised by, and you can become a lay member of one of the cults of chaos or law, or devoted to the elementals, and then you can even become an agent of, essentially an agent of an elemental or chaos or law and so on, and literally pledge your soul to that side, and fight and serve that cause until the end of time, essentially, because this role-playing game is set within the last dying years of the Young Kingdoms, as detailed in Moorcock's fiction. Essentially, the end of it, Moorcock, basically Elric will find the horn that if you blows it, you know, basically will signal signal the end of time itself, and you're all building up to that. But there's something quite amazing and glorious to be playing in that final period. Or essentially, the GM could go, okay, I'm going to take you in a completely different direction. Doesn't have to be the Young Kingdoms; it could be somewhere else on that world, or off on the plains and so on. You have a beginning scenario in here. You've got beasts as well. Where are we? Got hints for the Game Master. A nice bit of game advice, fairly short. Then we've got basically the Sorcerer's Tower, which is a devil level tower. Quick adventure, basically 1 session or so. Essentially, there's the second level. Nicely detailed, lots of treasure to find and things to do, bit of combat, and we have at the back the 4 stats for NPCs, such as Elric himself, and of course, where is it? Stormbringer, the demon weapon, you know, strength 30, con 200, size 3, int 10, power 200, dex 80, charisma 20. Essentially, it's a character all of its own. And then sample summonings, which the player characters can essentially use or paraphrase or, you know, adapt to if they are summoning things. And there's a bibliography at the back and an explanation of all the tables. So that's the core rulebook. So everything you need to play. And then you have cardboard cutouts, essentially little standees you would use. And in here, I've got things like basically forms and notes from notes to the combination of RuneQuest, notes on the combination of RuneQuest and Stormbringer combat, weapons and magic, and this is just notes made by the previous owner, and it gives a bit of a personal touch to the game. So I'm never going to remove those. I mean, basically it gives this copy of the game a little bit of history. You know, you pick up a game and it's nice and it's you know, it's all new and all that's lovely. But again, it's just sometimes you pick up a copy of the game and it's got some notes in it from the previous owner, and that brings it to life. And we have sample, basically complex, fairly, you know, traditional looking dungeon, not very interesting, I have to admit. And then sheaf of RuneQuest characters, RuneQuest sheet Mark IV, and this would date about the time of the second edition Games Workshop version, and there's basically more in there. But that's more or less everything. There's no dice in here, that doesn't matter. I'm not particularly interested in the fact that whether or not it's got dice in there, that it's got the book, and that's what I really was interested in. And perhaps I might find a nicer, better copy at some point, but honestly, I've got a copy in my collection and I've been able to write about it and talk about it on this video and unbox it as well, and that was really that was something I've always wanted to do, and I've got to admit, this is a game I have played. We are talking sometime in the 80s, 80s, sort of like very early 90s, and yeah, never quite got the handle on it personally, but I mean, coming back to it as, you know, someone with a bit, you know, clueless gamer in their 20s that I was, you know, in the late teens, that's more interesting. It's an interesting game. It does have that unbalance of the mechanics in terms of character generation. So you kind of need that. You need to sort of like tell the players that going in, saying, look, it's got this problem. You may end up, because essentially character generation is completely random. You can ignore that, of course, but it's completely random, so you may end up with varying power levels. But if you play with that, see how it goes. You know, I think you can have a fantastic game of this, and especially if you like the setting. So that's Stormbringer from Chaosium, published in the early 80s. There are different iterations of this available. There are 3 or 4 supplements as well. This would go on to become Elric. Games Workshop will publish a hardback, which is probably where most people in this country came across it, and that could have basically probably would have, essentially that was a hardback book. We've got a copy of that somewhere, but this is the original. So thank you once again for watching another unboxing in the Nook. I hope you've enjoyed that. If you have, please click that like button down below. And of course, if you've got any comments or feedback, appreciate you taking the time to post those, and I will read them. And lastly, if you want to be alerted to yet more unboxings in the Nook, where you will see me here with a parcel and a game, which I will unbox and then talk about to the extent of my knowledge and opinion for roughly 10 minutes, then of course accompanied by a nice hot cup of tea, then please do hit that subscribe button. You appreciate that. Well, thank you again for watching another unboxing in the Nook. I hope you've enjoyed this. I will be back again soon with another unboxing in the very near future. Bye for now.